How little do we know of the suffering of the world. On March 13, 1964, there was a young lady walking home in New York by the name of Kitty Genovese. Just before she reached home, she was assaulted and stabbed. 38 bystanders saw the whole stabbing. She was stabbed 102 times. And she died, and nobody did anything, and nobody called the police. It has been termed by psychologists as the Genovese effect, or the bystander effect, where people watch something happening and don't do anything about it. I just looked it up this morning on my phone, and I said, I think that lady's name was Kitty. And I looked it up, and boom, I just picked it just fast. It's still news today. People who watch other people die but don't do anything. The bystander effect. I believe, thank you. I believe God today is tired of watching bystanders among his people. I believe God is somewhat indignant as well to have shared so much love and so many blessings with his church in North America and Europe, and now in some countries in Asia that are prospering financially. And the more we prosper, it seems that the more we forget about the mission. We're too comfortable. So we prefer to be bystanders and watch other people die, but try to ignore it and think of our own needs. Maybe we will get hurt if we get involved. I remember the story of one man that I've used it in some of my sermons before, but he was walking home one day and he decided to take a shortcut. It was late in the day, so he decided to take a shortcut through the woods, and as he was going to the darkening woods, he heard a young lady's voice call out for help, and he heard a gruff, rough man's voice tell her to shut up. He knew there was an assault taking place, and he considered not intervening because he might get hurt. But on the other hand, he was a Christian, so after hearing the young lady cry out several times, he decided he would take the risk, and with a loud shout, he rushed toward the bushes in the dark shadows, screaming that he was coming to help her. A half-dressed man ran off into the darkness, and the young lady crouched behind the bushes. After the man had run off, he said, "Excuse me, ma'am, are you okay?" There was no sound. "Excuse me, ma'am, I came to help you. I heard you cry for help. Are you okay?" Still silence. "Ma'am, I'm here to help you. I'm coming to help you. Do you need help?" And a scared voice called out, "Daddy, is that you?" It was his own daughter. He almost did not help her. He almost went home and thought, I won't get involved because I might get hurt. Only to find out that it was his own daughter he helped. Could I suggest to you that every time you help somebody and save a life, you're saving your own family? They might live on the other side of the world, speak a different language, and be a different color, but we're all family. There are forces in the world who would seek to stop you. Family influences, comfort influences, friends. A lot of reasons why you should not risk yourself to help somebody dying on the other side of the planet that you don't even know. But I would propose to you that Jesus gave the example already. He left his home and came to this hostile planet, giving up everything. And as a result, I love I love his statement just before he left. All authority is given to me in heaven and earth. For the joy that was laid up before him, he endured the cross. But there was a payback day. And all authority was given unto him because of his sacrifice. And someday soon, the rest of the payback will come. As he will look out and see the saved of all the ages. And he's asking you and me to be part of that. Would you be willing to give up everything to save somebody? He says, take up your cross and follow me. That's what its mission is all about. That is just doing exactly what Jesus did. I can't even imagine. That's what Sister White says, that you cannot be saved unless you're a missionary. You cannot. Can you imagine being in heaven and being welcomed into heaven when you had no interest in helping anybody else? That would be a spirit totally foreign. It would be dangerous to have in heaven. And yet, most church members believe today they can come to church and sit on their bench and be good and regular members and good and regular standing, and they will go to heaven because of that. Not so. Either we participate in the mission, or we have nothing to do with Jesus Christ. It's very black and white. Matthew 25 and Matthew 25, Jesus gave 3 parables. The first one of the 10 virgins. The church, all of them waiting. All of them expecting to be welcomed into the wedding. Only to find, disappointingly, that half of them, who had been waiting faithfully, along with everybody else, were not ready. They had no oil in their lamps. And interestingly enough, most of them were sleeping. They all slumbered and slept. Now, not everybody slept, because I used to think that represented the whole church. But do you realize that somebody has to be awake to give the loud cry? There was a loud cry. The bridegroom is coming. Let us go forth to meet him. Somebody had to be awake. And I believe God is preparing a people today that is not sleeping, that are wide awake to the events that are happening, and they're shouting in a loud voice, get ready. The bridegroom is coming. Let us go forth to meet him. It's a wonderful privilege to be part of that group. Now, there's others that will be saved because of the loud cry. They will come in at the last minute. But what a privilege to be part of the announcement team. What a privilege to sound the trumpet. What a privilege to wake people up and say, the bridegroom is coming, get ready. Some years ago, just 2 or 3 years ago, I guess about 3, I heard a very influential Adventist pastor say that Jesus may not come for 1,000 years. And then I heard 3 more pastors say the same thing within the next 4 to 5 months. I have never heard this. This is not even Adventism. The imminent coming of Jesus Christ is one of our principal doctrines. That's why we're here. Otherwise, we don't need another denomination. Did you know there's more than 33 denominations in the world? Christian denominations. 33,000, I'm sorry. 33,000 denominations. We don't need another church. The world already has too many. We are not just another denomination. We are not just a church. This is not a club. This is a movement. It is a message. And if you do not proclaim that message, may I suggest you are not really a member of the movement. You cannot just be a member unless you're actively involved. Unless you lay everything on the altar. Someday soon we will find the people that we sit next to have no oil. Or they will find that we have no oil. Suddenly, it will be too late to get oil. So God has given us this. Last night we mentioned there's a little time, one more chance for God's people to get oil. And how would you do that? How would you get oil in your lamps? That's why we have 3 parables. Each one leads to the next one. The second parable in Matthew 25 is a parable of the talents. Jesus said, are you interested in getting oil in your lamps? Let me tell you another parable. There was a man who left on a long journey, and he left 5 talents. By the way, how much is a talent of gold? Approximately a lifetime of earnings. About $500,000 in today's. Most average people working at an average wage can earn about $500,000 over a period of 40 years. Some have more than a lifetime of earnings. They get 2 talents. Some get 5 talents. And he went on a long journey. He did not tell him when he was coming back. But when he came back, he asked suddenly for a rendering of accounts. He who had received 5 had worked very hard and produced 10 talents. And the words were, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. But then the second one came and rendered, and he also heard the same words. And finally, the man with 1 talent came. And you know, I've written the accounting systems for 2 unions. I was director of computer services for 2 unions over 10 years. And I've helped with the auditing. I've helped with all of the things. I love computer work. I taught computer science for some years down in the Caribbean. And I even though I've put it aside now for quite a few years because I'm working on the front lines, medical work and evangelism and so on. But I love programming. And so I programmed all the accounting systems, and I just love to see numbers go, process them and come out long sheets of paper, you know, and it just, in fact, I miss DOS. It's so much fun to process. You know, I started out when the first hard drive I've ever laid eyes on was a big thing that looked about like this. 5 megabytes. It was a little taller than this. And I looked at it, I can't believe you can store that much information. You know, and then the first flop, everything we did was on tape before. Everything was on tape, sequentially. The wheels would spin, and you would get stuff, or you would have a cassette tape for the small home computers. And then later on, they doubled the size from a PC to an AT computer and a 286. Wow, that processor went from 4.77 megahertz to twice that speed. Turbo mode, button. And in 386 computer. But that was an expensive one, so they came up with the 386 SX, a kind of a half-breed, little portable things today, and that was the favorite computer, one of the ones I've ever had. Had 3 megabytes of RAM in it, and you can do anything with that. And today, you know, 15, 32, 64 gigabytes, nothing to think about. But I still remember those days and processing, and I remember how we did accounting, and everything, when the auditor came, every cent had to be in place. They never ask you to produce more than what you received. As long as you rendered account for exactly what you received, that's what you rendered account for, everything was green light. But God's accounting is quite different. God says, I gave you 1 talent. I expect a return on my investment. Don't just render accounts for 1 talent. What did you do with my money? God's accounting is quite different than human accounting. And when he comes back, he's not going to say, I expect you to give me back what I gave to you. No, he says, give me a return on my investment. And now, that's what the talents are all about. They produced 100% gain, 100%. And the last one just returned exactly what he had received, and it was taken away from him and given to them that had 10, and he was thrown out into outer darkness. Many of us are going to find that we've received all these talents from the Lord, and we've never invested them. And God's not interested in money. That parable is not even about money. Does God need money? He already owns everything. And he made it himself anyway. If he needs more, he makes it. So it's not about money at all. It's about souls. The only thing that God does not have is he doesn't have all the souls that he would like to have. And so he gives us talent so we can go out and win souls. It's all about souls. It has nothing to do with money. How many people did you win with your influence and your time and your resources? That's what he's going to ask. What did you do with all the blessings? You graduated from Wildwood. What did you do with it? You have resources. What did you do with them? He's going to ask us that question. We are going to render accounts someday. And so then the final parable is, you want to use your talents? I'll show you how to use them. Feed the hungry, give water to the thirsty, dress the naked, visit the orphans and the widows in their affliction, go visit them in prison, those that are prisoners. Go visit them. Take care of human needs. You take care of basic human needs, I will say, as you did it to them, you did it to me. It's very simple to be part of the mission. Just give of yourself to meet basic human needs of others and share God's love just for the sake of sharing God's love. People will come and say, I've never met somebody like you. Why are you that way? Oh, you want to know my Jesus? Yes, please tell me. And you can introduce them to Jesus. But we have to be living reflections of God's love to the humanity. And I am so unloving. When I look at myself, I think I'm pretty good and generous. I like to give. But one day, I became very, very aware of how selfish I was. I came back from working at the union. I worked for 6 years at the union office in Peru. I came back from the union at home one day, and my wife says, I forgot to go shopping today. All I have is just a pancake for you to eat. I've been working hard all day, and I'm hungry. I'm sorry, that's all I got. What kind of wife do I have anyway? By the way, it's only happened once in 33 years, and I was griping. One pancake. That's it. For supper. And I was getting a little irritated, and I was sitting there feeling bad for myself, and there's a knock on the door, and a couple walks in that's been on traveling for several days. Well, hello, how are you? Come on in. Have you had supper yet? No, we haven't had supper. Please, have a seat. And I'm saying, what in the world is she having in mind? And she laid out 2 empty plates, and she came over to my plate and cut my pancake into 3 parts, and she gave them each a third. See, that's all we have, but I'm sure David is happy to share with you. And my heart went, that is my food. But the Lord just put a mirror up and said, David, you think you're a generous person and you like to give, but not when you're hungry, you don't. Huh? And I've often looked back at that and said, I really don't know the real David Gates. The real David Gates is, what does he do when he's hungry? Will he really share when he's hungry? Will he really give of himself when he is not full? Will he give of his extra, or will he give till it hurts? And I've learned that I can't even trust myself. I can't. One time I was going to a board meeting when I was a young man. I was on a board, and somebody told me and said, David, today something is going to happen that's going to cause you to have to feel like defending yourself. A message from God to you. Don't say anything. Do not defend yourself. That is the message God has given me for you. Was I capable of doing that? No. As soon as the attack came, I defended myself. And I thought to myself, even when God tells me not to do it, I don't know how to do it. This is the difficulty of the human nature. Even when you know you're not supposed to, we still do it. And I just distress myself every time I do. I go, I wonder what I'm going to do. I know God wants me to do this, but what will I do unless I surrender? So all I can say is, Lord, take control of me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to behave with love. When I'm really hurting inside, I don't give love to anybody. I need love myself. But how? But Jesus always gave love. Always. He has to do it in us because we're not capable of doing it. So even though the requirements are clear, we're not capable of doing it. All we can do is surrender. That's all we can do. If we surrender to Jesus Christ, then let Him do it because we cannot do it. It's not within our abilities. And someday, this beautiful mission of reaching people that it's all about people. And it's all about being Jesus' hands and through the Holy Spirit having the character replicated in us for this last generation so that Jesus can say to the universe, when I say my people, this is what I mean. And that's happening all around us. It's the sealing process taking place. There's a shaking process happening now. It started already. Last day events. I don't want to say too much about the shaking because it's so strong that it might be considered in a bad spirit. You can read it yourself. But the chapter from the last day events on the shaking is very, very strong. And it says, as trials thicken around us, page 175, both separation and unity will be seen in our ranks. This is happening all around the world, separation and unity, as people unite on one side and unite on the other side, in opposition or in humility and submission to God. Separation and unity at the same time. Well, of course we want to work united, but it's very difficult to have two opposing soccer teams or football teams or whatever thing you do. You can't kick the ball in both directions. You have to choose what team you're on. You have to know which way you kick the ball. If you don't, I just played 3 hours of soccer the other day with my sons. I miss the days when they were like about 13 and 15 and I could whip both of them. It was daddy against the two sons. And we'd play and play out there until we were exhausted, but I could weave my way around both of them and score, and they would try their best, and I would catch up with them. But once they turned 15 and 17, I could no longer beat them. And now they just invite Daddy to play with them now and then. And they have all the energy. And I played the other day for 3 hours, and I like to run. But playing ball and running are two different things, different muscles involved. And I went to Mexico this last weekend. I was so sore I could hardly walk, because different muscles are used for kicking balls and defending and so on. But you have to know what team you're on. And the question is, do we know what side we're on? You have to have that very clear. Where does your loyalty lie? Both separation will be seen, and there will be a shaking. It's caused by the straight testimony, by the way. And one thing is certain, page 177, those Seventh-day Adventists who take their stand under Satan's banner. I can't even imagine taking a stand under Satan's banner. How horrible that will be, to be actually taking a stand on the wrong team and fighting against God. Those Seventh-day Adventists, one thing is certain, this is not a maybe. Those Seventh-day Adventists who take their stand under Satan's banner will first give up their faith in the warnings and the reproofs contained in the testimonies of God's Spirit. If you lose your confidence in the testimonies, one thing is absolutely certain. You will take your stand under Satan's banner. That's why there's a war today to see which side your allegiance is on. Very few spend time reading the testimonies. Very few. It's a minority. The majority, maybe through ignorance, maybe because they haven't been exposed, maybe because it's not coming from the pulpit as often as it should, they simply don't read them. And so they're not aware of the subtle deceptions creeping in from every side because they don't take time to read. The Loud Cry is a beautiful chapter. The Latter Rain, and then followed by the Loud Cry. Beautiful chapters. God will use ways and means in which it will be seen that he is taking reins into his own hands. That's happening already. But it's time to choose sides. Where does your loyalty lie? I left my Christian service book down in Bolivia, so I just want to read a few things from Christian service. Loyalty. Did you know that this whole great controversy is all about loyalty? That's really where it lies. Where does your loyalty, where is it rooted? To what will you give your loyalty so that you cannot be moved? Chapter 24 of Christian Service under loyalty. The Lord abhors indifference and disloyalty in a time of crisis in his work. The whole universe is watching with inexpressible interest the closing scenes of the great controversy between good and evil. The people of God are nearing the borders of the eternal world. What can be of more importance to them than to be loyal to the God of heaven? Now you can say, if I ask you to raise your hand, how many of you are loyal to the God of heaven? Almost everybody would raise their hand. But loyalty is not expressed by raising your hand. Look what it says here. All through the ages, God has had moral heroes, and he has them today. Those who, like Joseph and Elijah and Daniel, are not ashamed to acknowledge themselves his peculiar people. His special blessing accompanies the labors of men and women of action. Men who will not be swerved from the straight line of duty, but who will with divine energy inquire, who is on the Lord's side? You know what? It's not politically correct today to ask people what side they're on. Every side is okay. We don't want to take sides. No, we don't want to divide. It's not politically correct to ask the question, excuse me, what team are you on? But God's people do that. They say, which side are you on? Are you on the Lord's side? Men who will not stop merely with inquiring, but who will demand that those who choose to identify themselves with the people of God shall step forward and reveal unmistakably their allegiance to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. That's a very harsh statement. Prove it. Prove what side you're on. Don't just tell me. Don't raise your hand. Don't just say, I want the Lord to do it. You have to be willing to prove it. And there are people today that are doing that. Qualifications for successful service is the chapter there. I want to read a couple more. A call to arouse, chapter 9. Let the gospel message ring throughout our churches, summoning everyone to universal action. How many? Everybody. Where? In our churches. all our churches, asking everyone to join in the universal action. Let church members have increased faith, gaining zeal from their unseen heavenly allies, from a knowledge of their inexhaustible resources. How many resources? Inexhaustible. We don't have a money problem in a church. There never has been. It's the human resources we have a problem with. That has always been God's problem, finding human resources. From the greatness of the enterprise in which they're engaged and from the power of their leader. We have a leader with tremendous power. If you knew how much power he had, you would never fear to place yourself in his hands. Did you know people think that the world is run by humans today? It's not run by humans. God runs the entire universe. I just saw a video the other day called The Brain Center of the DNA. They're discovering massive machines, coordinated little micro machines, how they make DNA. I mean, it's a little machine that fits together with all the proteins, and it starts to grab a little line of DNA, and it starts analyzing it and pulling everything together. Sometimes it has to produce a whole chain on one side, then it has to pull it back in, and it has to do it backwards to be able to get it, because that's the fastest way to do it. In other words, you produce one chain, and then you replicate it coming backwards the opposite direction. That's accident? Don't tell a computer scientist that. This is extreme genius programming, where you take a DNA, you break it apart, and you make an exact chain, and then to build the other side, you go in the opposite order, and you pull it back in, and you add the other pieces. So when it comes out the other side, it's complete. And that's how you duplicate a DNA. It's all done by a little brain center. What great power we have. And we don't have anything to be scared of at all. The Master runs the whole universe. He has everything under his control. If we would just come to him for orders and obey him, that's all we have to do. It says, those who place themselves under God's control to be led and guided by him will catch the steady tread of events as he ordains them to take place. Inspired with the spirit of him who gave his life for the life of the world, they will no longer stand still in impotence, pointing to what they cannot do. Instead, they will put on the armor of heaven and go forth to the warfare, willing to do and to dare for God, knowing that his omnipotence will provide for their need. Isn't that beautiful? We will no longer stand still saying impotently, we can't do it. We just don't have enough. It's impossible. No. They will put on the armor of heaven. They will go forth to the warfare, willing to do and to dare for God. That's what Abraham did. If you read Patriarchs and Prophets, he didn't ask God, is it a good land? Can I make money? He just obeyed. And he went out, not knowing where he was going because he trusted his leader. Amen. Someday we're going to give account. Very soon we're going to give account. And suddenly we will find that it will be too late to prepare. If we're prepared, we move into line. Now, not later. Today's the day of salvation. And God is calling his people to come into line, to come into line. That involves the health message, which Wildwood is very strong on. We're so thankful for that. And other of our institutions that are strong on that. There's a lot of resistance to that message. It is. I'm telling you that there is a lot in many divisions of the world. I was in one division in Asia, and in one country, and I was asked to speak at one of our universities, and I was speaking, and there was a lot of theology students and a lot of other students there, but there was also some lay people, and it was time for questions and answers. And one lay person said, I just recently came into the church because of the health message. I just loved it. I was dying of a disease, and I was able to change my diet, and God gave me health again. And I came in. But when I was baptized in a church, but the moment I opened my mouth to give my testimony, I was told, shut your mouth. We don't do that kind of thing here. And so she said, I'm confused. I'm a new Adventist, but I can't talk about the health message inside the church. My pastor will not let me. And so she goes, what do we do? I said, this is a sad thing that we have to have in the church today. Just be faithful. I know, but what do I do with my pastor? And all these young theology students were there. And so I said, you need to pray for him. Maybe God will be merciful to him and give him cancer. And I know of very few pastors dying of cancer that do not become vegetarians or vegans. In other words, Maybe the best thing God can do for us is to let the consequences of our choices fall on us. Because the sooner we realize the consequences, the sooner we're willing to correct. So I said, just pray and be found faithful. That's all we can do. Pray and work and be found faithful. But there is a war inside, and right now the war is inside more than outside, it seems. But God is preparing a people. Have you noticed? The other day I turned on a radio station from Chattanooga. A Baptist pastor was preaching, but I could have sworn he was an Adventist pastor. He was saying, Jesus is coming soon. Brothers and sisters, we have to get ready. We need reform in diet, reform in dress. We need to get serious and be obedient to what God is telling us. And I said, amen, brother. And I found out it was broadcasting of MBW. Excuse me? You know, I made a statement once, and I want to say it again. If God's people are not going to preach the message, God has other children that are not of this fold, and they will do it. But you and I will lose our crown if we don't do it. That's why we're told to hold fast that which we have, that no man take our crown. We have a beautiful message. We've been given this beautiful message, and we're told to go into all the world, to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. How many? Everybody. That is the orders from the general. And there's this phrase in Spanish that says, what the captain orders, a sergeant cannot countermand. Basically, in a Marine type of thing. But it's basically when the general says something, a colonel or a lower officer cannot countermand. Our divine general has already given us orders to go into all the world and preach the gospel. And it's not always easy to do that. Because as you do that, you will find that there are challenges along the way. Some of them come from inside, some of them come from outside. Sometimes they're financial, sometimes they're political, sometimes they're religious. Differences in religion. There's a lot of reasons why you cannot go. But the general said go. So humbly, you must do what you're told. You must try your very best to work together, but sometimes you have to go alone. And in the end, every single soul will stand alone before the throne and give account. That's in the end. In the end, you will stand alone. So if you have to go alone, sometimes there's two ways to go. We go together or we go alone. Plan A and Plan B. You know, if you're willing to do either plan, the job will always get accomplished. If you're willing to go alone, you can get the job done. Because God will bless and multiply, even if only one person is willing to go. But somebody has to be willing. Nobody. By the way, you know you can't get hurt unless God gives permission, right? You can't. Nobody can kill you. Nobody can touch you. Of course, there is an exception to that. If you have impurities in your life, if you take the devil's music, if you take the devil's videos in your house, in your life, if you have the world in your life and in your home, the devil has rights too. And he can tell God's angels, stand aside. This person has chosen to have my things in their life. And God limits the devil's abilities, but the devil has rights to harass you. That's why it's so important for us to live pure lives. In total surrender and get rid of that worldly stuff. We don't need that stuff in our home because it gives the devil a right to come in. When we allow his magazines, his videos, his music into our home and into our lives, the devil has access directly to us. And he will use that to hurt us. But when you put that away, there's a perfect circle of angels that surround, and only with permission can Satan touch you. What a wonderful thing God offers his children. And if God gives permission, it's only for your good. He will not give permission just to hurt you, but sometimes we need to be disciplined. And sometimes we need to be trained. Just like Olympic trainers, they make their Olympic athletes suffer. You knew that, right? Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and run 10 miles before breakfast. And if you say, no, sir, you're out of the program. You have to say, yes, sir. Do 100 push-ups. Run so many miles. Eat this diet. Sleep this way. Do this. Do the other. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the only way to get to the Olympics is to submit yourself to training. And as we get closer and closer to Jesus coming, we're also in this discipline of training. And so I made up my mind that if nobody can hurt me or touch me without God's permission, then I should intervene every time I can when I see somebody hurting. So I made up my mind. And in Peru, when I was traveling a lot, there was a little lonely road that goes to the university. And in those days, there was a lot of assaults and robberies along that road as people walked up and down that road. And I used to come in from the Union every evening about 7 or 8 o'clock. And it was dark. And there would be multiple assaults happening every day along that lonely road. And I made up my mind, Lord, if you ever put me in a position where I see somebody getting assaulted by a gang, 10 persons, I don't care what, I'm getting out of my car and I'm walking right into the middle to help that person. Because all it takes is one angel, by the way. One angel. And they're pretty tall. I don't know how tall, if you know how tall they're about 20 feet tall. I've talked to several people that have seen angels. I've seen my angel, but it was in human form, and and so I can't say that that's their real size. Because you can't have a real human walking around 20 feet tall. That would get an attraction. But on another occasion, I was assaulted by a gang member with a sword in a little tiny place in Lima, Peru. And as soon as that guy came in, he was ready to run me through with his sword in a public toilet. And all of a sudden, he looked up and he put his sword back and he backed into the corner and he put his head down like a little child in a corner. But he wasn't looking at this. He was looking up there. Whatever it was, he saw behind me. I don't know. It must have been the angel. But I do in Australia. After I preached throughout Australia, a lady, the sister of one of our good friends there, and he had been one of our board members, he gave me the letter from his sister, and she said, "Dear David, after you preached a sermon on extreme purity, I said, Lord, I want to have extreme music, pure music in my home, but I don't know what heavenly music is. I want to know what heavenly music is. Could you show me someday?" And this is the letter she gave to me. And she said that she went home and she was washing her clothes and she was hanging the clothes outside. And then suddenly, strange music started coming from her house. Beautiful music that she had never heard in her lifetime before. So she left her clothes outside and she went into the house. And she said, inside of my house, there were 2 angels. They had their heads bowed, their wings folded, and their arms folded in front of them, and they had their heads bowed, and she realized they were worshiping. So she knelt down beside them, and for a whole hour, the music continued. And then finally she said, Lord, can you release me? And she closed her eyes, and she could see the angels right through her eyes. And the music came to a halt. She opened her eyes, and on the TV was written, heavenly music. Only 2 words on the TV. It said heavenly music. And she knew that God had showed her what true heavenly music sounds like. No worldly rhythms, no trap set, just beautiful harmonic, melodic music singing in glory to God. She now knows what that is. I've never heard true music from the angels, but she has. And she told me the angels were about 20 foot tall, and they went right to the roof, but yet they were inside her living room. And she knelt beside them, but she goes, they're about 20 foot tall. Do we need to be afraid of any gang members when we have only one angel 20 foot tall next to us? And then there's angels that excel in strength. And then for God's workers, God gives a double portion of angels, and they're dressed from head to foot in armor. And they march in perfect unison around the children of God. We have nothing to be afraid of, brothers and sisters. It is time we go out and we rescue the perishing. It is time that we go out and place our own lives on the line. Walk right into the face of danger. There's a young lady that came to join us in our Switzerland Foundation. She joined our team. She made her decision. She's well known in the denomination as an ADRA director for years and years. She's from Indonesia. She's now a German citizen. Her father was very influential in world government. And she comes from an ex-Muslim background. And she says, wherever there's a war, wherever there's violence, that's where I want to be working. She just came back from the middle of Libya, in Libya when they had that war. She worked in Afghanistan during all of that time. And she says, I learned a lesson. Nobody can touch me. God just gives me very special protection. I can deal with the guerrilla leaders. I can deal with the military leaders. I go into their homes. I meet the children. I meet their wives. They treat me like a daughter. And she says, I've seen cars blown up, missiles Boom, there's some coworkers. Boom, the car blows up right in front of me. Bodies fly out burning on fire. I've seen that happen. I've seen people shot and killed. But the one thing I want to do, she said, is I want to reach their soul before they die. She just joined our team 2 weeks ago. And she's pushing us so hard we don't even know how to keep up. But our goal is to develop a pool of emergency pools in every country where people say, if you have an emergency, if you have an earthquake, if you have a disaster, please count on me. Call me. I am available. And in every country, we want to develop emergency pools of people who are willing. People can put up tents. People who can do carpentry, who can do whatever the skill is. Just make yourself available. And we're going to be making that available. And she's coordinating all of that. And she's going to be doing training. And the world is about ready to burn, brothers and sisters. There's going to be disasters left and right. And it's going to be an opportunity for God's people to go to the front lines. And so therefore, as we approach those last few days, God is asking to find out who is willing to risk their life to save another. That's the end. That's the last question that's going to be asked. As you did it to them, you also did it to me. So I would like to challenge all our graduates. Are you willing? Are you willing to risk your life and go where nobody wants to go? Are you willing to risk everything you have, your reputation, your resources, your life, your freedom, to go save somebody who is also at risk? That's the question before us today. And someday we're going to hear the words, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Isn't that a beautiful thing? If you would like to be willing to do that, would you make that decision in your mind today? Only you know. If that's it, just say, Lord, yes, count on me, Lord. Train me, teach me, discipline me, whatever you have to do. But please, make me one of that team that can reflect your love to a dying world. And whatever it takes, if I lose everything, I get it all back again. But God is not looking for people to die for him today. What is he looking for? People to live for him. That's much harder. It is my choice. Would you be willing to raise your hand and say, Lord, that's my choice too? Amen. How beautiful.